Welcome to Beneath the Long Man's Feet. Thank you for joining me again. For this episode, I want to tell a story. It's a short story, so stick with me. And it's a story about the small things that can make a difference. I've called the story Ripples, and I hope you enjoy it. Old Jack gets out of his bed, shuffles over to the curtains, and draws the curtains wide, and watches as the ink black of night turns into the soft grey of dawn, just as he has done for more years now than he cares to remember. And he thinks to himself, he hopes to himself, maybe, just maybe this will be his last. And then he hears a woman's voice. "Why so melancholy, my child?" Well, Jack is shocked. He's not sure what shocks him more, the fact that there's a woman in his bedroom. That hasn't happened for a very long time. Or the fact that someone's calling him child. That hasn't happened for even longer. The woman's voice continues. "Ah, Jack, you people are always my children, no matter how old you are in this life." Jack turns round and faces the woman in his room, and he realises that there in front of him is his goddess. His goddess, right there, in his bedroom. "That's right, Jack," says the lady. "You know who I am. Now come, sit beside me here and tells me, what ails you so much that you want to leave this world?" "Well," says Jack, "I don't feel that my long life has led to anything useful. I don't feel I've done anything worthwhile. I mean, over there in my bookcase there are poets and writers and painters and musicians, and they've left their works for us to enjoy long after they've left this world. And then there are thinkers and inventors, and they too have left us something in this world that we can look back on and, enjoy, but I've done none of that. And then there's politicians and statesmen who are striving to make this world a better place, and I won't remember for any of that. I've done nothing. I just feel that my long life has been a waste." "Well, Jack," says the goddess, as she gets up and walks over to his bookcase, "it's true," she says, "that these musicians, these painters and these poets you mention, they've left us some wonderful works. But many of these people were tortured people in their lifetime. They had tortured lives. Is that any way to live? And you say about thinkers and inventors, it's true they've left us their thoughts and their ideas, but many of these ideas are superseded by current thinking. So, does that matter? And as for politicians, Jack, well, you and I know that there are more politicians who are out for their own good than they're out for the good of the people. So don't aspire to be like a politician, for goddess sake. No, Jack, what you need to think about are the ripples." "Ripples?" says Jack. I don't understand. "If you take a big rock," says the goddess, "and throw it into a pond, it makes a big splash, but it's gone in seconds. But the ripples left by that splash last a lot longer." "Yeah, I know what a ripple is," says Jack, "but how does that relate to me?" "Ripples," says the goddess. "What you do in this life ripples out always. What you do in this life ripples out always. Let me give you some examples. Do you remember when you were a scout leader, Jack? When you used to tell stories around the campfire?" "Yeah," says Jack, "I used to love telling those stories to the scouts." "Well, what you might not know," says the goddess, "is that at least 2 of those scouts went on to become successful writers in their own right, inspired by the stories you used to tell them around the campfire." "Whoa," says Jack, "I didn't know that." "Jack, what about when you helped that old lady when all her shopping went over the floor? You were shopping, and if this old lady came up, went to get on the bus, she tripped over, her shopping went all over the place, and she was very distressed. You picked up her shopping, you sat her down in a local cafe and bought her a cup of tea, and she told you she'd only gone out for dog food and cat food, and you realised there was none of that in her bag. So while she was drinking her tea, you went and bought some dog food and cat food for her. Remember that?" "Oh, yeah, I sort of remember now you say. I'd forgotten all about that, though." "Well, Jack, old Mrs. Morris, she never forgot about that," says the goddess. "Before that moment she had a mistrust of all young people. But from that moment she decided she wouldn't judge a book by its cover, and she spent the rest of her life campaigning for young people to be understood better or for better facilities for the youth. And that's because of that moment when you helped her, Jack. And let me give you another example, Jack. Do you remember the wallet you found recently stuffed full of cash? Yes, says Jack, I remember that. I was so skint at the time, I was sorely tempted to keep that money, but I saw the driving licence was in there and it wasn't far from me, so I thought, okay, I'll go and drop it off. And I did, and well, the guy was ever so grateful. I mean, ever so grateful. Yes, Jack, you too would have been grateful if that had been you, for the money in that wallet was his child support. And if he hadn't paid that to his wife that day, it could have made seeing his children very difficult for the coming months. But he was able to pay it, was able to smooth things over with his ex-wife, and he's had a wonderful relationship with his children ever since. Yeah? Now, Jack, I'm a busy woman. I'm the goddess after all. So I've got you one more example before I go. Do you remember the young lady at a bus stop when you came out the pub after a few beers? You gave her the bus fare home? Yeah, I sort of remember that. I'd come out, had a few beers, and this lady, she came up to me and she begged me for money for the bus fare because her stepfather was going to be really mean to her if she didn't get home in time. Well, I didn't have much. I only had a fiver, which was enough to get her home, which was great, but it meant I had to walk home. It took me 2 hours. She was probably pulling my leg, but at least she'd get home on time, I suppose. No, Jack, says the goddess. She wasn't pulling your leg at all. She was deadly serious, and if she hadn't got home on time, her stepfather would have been very, very cross, and he was not a particularly nice man. But you helped her, you saved her from that, and she never forgot that. Ever since that moment, she's been paying things forward. Whenever she can do a little bit of kindness for someone, she does. She's never forgotten the moment where somebody showed her that moment of kindness when she most needed it. Now, as I said, Jack, I am the goddess. I am a busy woman. I have other people to go and see. Other people want to praise me after all. But there's some advice for you before I go. What you need to do is make a cup of tea, and then you go for a long walk in the woods behind your house, and you think about everything that's happened to you in your lifetime. And if you still want to leave this life, call to me tomorrow and we'll discuss it more. And Jack, one more thing. Yes, my lady, says the man. Before you do anything else, for goddess' sake, put some clothes on. And with that, the goddess was gone, and Jack was left there, realising he'd better get dressed. So he got dressed. He made a cup of tea, and then he went for a long walk in the woods around him, thinking about his life up to that point, and where he'd been, and what he had done, and who had helped him, and who he had helped. And when he got home that evening, he was so tired that he went straight to bed without any trouble. The next morning, Jack gets out of bed. He stretches his old weary bones, and he shuffles over to the curtains, and he draws the curtains, and he watches the ink black of night turn into the soft grey of dawn and beyond, just as he has done for more years than he cares to remember. And as he looks down, he sees next door neighbour's motorbike in bits on the ground, and he thinks, I'm going to help young Tommy fix that bike today. It's been there for a long time, and I've got tools that can help with that. And if he doesn't want my help, that's fine. I'll give him access to my tools and my garage, and he can do it himself. Yeah, he's going to fix that. Today's going to be a good day. But first, I'll get dressed and have a cup of tea. There we go. Ripples. Short story. I hope you enjoyed it. Do